Good morning, brothers and guests. Please welcome our host, Chief Operating Officer from Phi Theta Zeta at the University of North Carolina, Greensboro, Brother Justin Fisher.
All right, welcome back. So if you are looking for the High Alpha Summit session on the 5 exemplary practices of leadership, you are in the right spot. If you're looking for something else, it's in a different room. All right, so let's get into this presentation here. So our outcomes. Number one, we want to be able to identify what are the 5 exemplary practices of leadership. We want to learn, kind of evaluate where are you at right now with those 5 practices, and then what are some things you can do in the future to help improve on those 5 practices. So we're going to start off with a little activity. I want you to think about your life up to now. All the moments that have culminated to get you to where you are right now. What are your experiences? You can see there's a chart on the slide. It has some key benchmarks maybe in your life. But think about different points in your life. What were some great achievements that you were able to accomplish? And what were some of the biggest struggles or challenges you had to overcome? So let's take 5 minutes. Let's reflect on this and then write down some notes in your workbook. This would be pages 11 and 12 in your workbook if you're looking where to write this down. So think about achievements and challenges in your life thus far. Okay. So as you're thinking about those different moments in your life, those different achievements and challenges, who were your role models in your life at that time? What did they do? How did they either help you achieve success, or how did they help you through that challenge? What values did they exemplify and show you while they were helping you? So let's take a couple more minutes. Let's write down some notes, and then we're going to also share with our table. So write down some notes and then share. We'll come back in about 5 minutes, and there will be opportunity to share with the group. As my friend Will Overholt says, this is a get to, not a got to. Okay, let's wrap up conversation at the table, and let's get 3 people to share kind of what they discussed. So if you would like to volunteer, either raise your hand or stand up. I think we have a mic that can float around, or if you're loud like me, you can just yell. Go for it.
So like whenever I've been struggling with something or I need help, I can always turn to him. Even though he's graduated, I'm still I know I'm in a really unique position, and I'm really blessed to be in that. So, and I know like not everyone else has that opportunity, so I've made sure to make the most of it while I can.
Perfect, thank you. Got another volunteer over here. Oh, sorry. Is there someone there?
Where?
Thank you. The person that I really looked up to a lot was my big brother, Brian Burns. He was the previous alpha before me, and he's helped me get through so much, not only as a person, but also as a brother. You know, he's helped with a lot of my personal growth, and he's definitely helped my chapter get through some really difficult, rough patches that we've had. And it's something that I've always really admired was his resilience and his perseverance, and it's something that, you know, every day I know I can turn to him, both as a friend but also as a mentor. You know, someone I can always turn to. And there was a long period of time when I was really, really sick and I wasn't able to go to classes, and I had to take a medical leave of absence. And he called me every single day, making sure that I was all right and making sure that I was up to date with what was happening, which is something that I'll always admire and appreciate.
Thank you.
So a guy I always looked up to was also our past president when I was an associate, and he was always holding a really high standard of integrity in our chapter, and that's something I learned from him. And he's the one who really taught me that like being a part of a fraternity is bigger than yourself, and you're not there for you, you're there for the guys around you. And so that's something I've carried into what I'm doing now and hope to pass that on to the next alpha and just build that culture.
Thank you. Yeah, we can clap. We can clap. So now we're actually going to get into what are the 5 practices of exemplary leadership. So if you turn to pages 13 in your workbook, you'll get a brief overview. So these 2 guys, Kuzis and Posner, they started out with a question. And their question was, what makes great leaders great? Right? Leadership is one of the most widely used terms, probably many definitions of what good leadership is versus bad leadership. So they set out and they talked to thousands of people and asked kind of similar questions that you were asked, but who are leaders in your life? What do they do well? How do they make you feel? And they distilled everything that they learned down into 5 different practices. And so we're going to overview these 5 practices, and then I'm going to share with you from my life and my experiences how those 5 practices have kind of played out. So the first one is model the way. So that is, you lead by example, right? As a leader, you are the example that everyone else should follow. Second is inspire a shared vision. So there's 2 key words in there are inspire and shared. So this isn't just the leader, top down, this is what the vision is, this is what we're doing. It's a shared vision, right? You get buy-in from everyone in the group. And it's not your voice, but it's all of the collective voice. So you inspire others to participate in that. Third, challenge the process. Right? So leaders that challenge the process are never satisfied with the status quo. Always thinking about how can we be better? How can we improve? 4, enable others to act. Right? So leaders that practice this delegate. Right? They not only are great in what they do, but they make others great around them. And 5 is encourage the heart. So a leader that practices this shows a lot of support, right? You encourage people. You're their biggest fan, their biggest cheerleader, and you really get people to buy in from an emotional standpoint by recognizing them. So you're going to learn a little bit about my life throughout this. So that guy on the right, that's Joe Whalen. Joe is my grandfather. So he grew up in Baltimore City, worked at Bethlehem Steel, which many of you probably don't know what that is, but back in the day, it was one of the largest steel producers in the country. As he would say, back when we made things in this country. While working there, he put himself through night school to become a teacher. He actually wound up teaching at a machine shop at a vocational school near where my grandparents lived. And so what he taught me from a very young age is that he always did what he thought was right, no matter the personal cost to him, right? And he put his family first. So there were nights, I remember these stories, when he would have to work 3rd shift, so he'd have to work overnight and then go to school, right? And then still be a father, still be a husband. But he did all that with that vision that he wanted to provide a better life for his wife and his children. And so that notion of always putting family first and doing whatever it takes to be a good father and be a role model for your family has always stuck with me. And the other thing he taught me through his life story is there's no substitute for hard work, no shortcuts. You put the work in, good things will happen. It's really tough for me to choose between him and my father for this slide, but he was a phenomenal example for a young kid to have to look up to get to look up to that. Inspire a shared vision. So this guy is John Bowman. John's a friend of mine from church. He actually left a career in public accounting to become a full-time pastor at our church. I've never met anyone who is a bigger fan of you or of me than John. He will find anything about you, any positive attributes, and he will make you believe that you are the greatest version of yourself. John's superpower is that he has enabled us as a church to take personal ownership of whatever our mission is. And that's bettering ourselves and bettering the world around us. And so it's not just about this is what our executive pastor says, this is what we have to do, but he really is able to make it so that you have personal ownership and buy-in into that, right? So he makes each individual member believe and feel that it is their own personal responsibility to make sure that we go out and accomplish our vision. And another aspect of John is he enables you to dream. I tend to be a realist. I like to work in tactical elements, but he has inspired me to think about what could be instead of just what do we need to do right now. It's always a risk to include your boss in a presentation, but this is a risk that I'm going to take here. Any Ted Lasso fans in the room, raise your hands, right? Great show, amazing show. One of my favorite quotes from Coach Lasso is, "Be curious, not judgmental." So Troy joined as CEO in 2019. I had worked for the Office of Administration for 6 years. I left and have come back for about 2 more. And I didn't know what to think when they hired Troy. Troy didn't have any experience in nonprofit or higher education. I just knew that he had this corporate background. And my greatest fear is that Troy was going to come in and just say, here's all the things you're doing wrong, here are all the changes we're going to make, and this is how we're going to get better. And he didn't do that at all. He asked a lot of questions. He still asks a lot of questions. Why do we do this? Why do we do it this way? Have we ever thought about this? Is this the best possible way that we support our brothers? You know, when we changed from the ELC model to virtual coaching, that was the genesis of that was a question of, is this the best way to support the undergraduates of Lambda Chi Alpha? And if it's not, what is? How can we get better? Troy is someone who's never satisfied with the status quo. He's constantly searching for how we can be better, how we can make things better, how we could achieve more. And an idea is never really good enough. Now I will tell you, this can be frustrating at times because, like I said, I'm an execution guy. So when we set a plan and then Troy's like, hey, got some extra things that we need to change, but that underlying belief, right, that we could be doing better, that's Lambda Chi, right? That's the crescent. Our symbol teaches us this, that we are constantly seeking perfection, knowing that we will never achieve it. Enable others to act. So this is John Williamson, and then that's George Spazik on the right there, if you don't recognize him. So John is a Lambda Chi from Maryland. He was an interim director of chapter services, so it's 3 months. I have approximately worked about 150 months of my life since I graduated college. John was my boss for 3, and he's had an amazing impact. That's 2%, if you do some quick math there. So 2% of the time that I've been working in the workforce, this guy was my boss, and he has had an immense impact on who I am today. So my first boss really liked to micromanage. So there was a lot of like, I got to check and get approval for everything, right? Make sure everything's okay, a lot of back and forth, a lot of being told all the things that I'm doing wrong. And at 23, this was kind of hard, right? This kind of beat me up of like, I'm never doing anything right. So John comes in, and you know, I'm I'm in that mode. So I'm constantly going to him, asking questions. Is this okay? Is this okay? And one day he just stopped me and he said, what are you doing? And I'm like, what do you mean? I come to you for approval. You're my boss. This is how we do things. And I'll never forget this. He said, Justin, I trust you. I believe in you. And you're going to make the right decision. So whatever you think is right, that's what we're doing. And that was the first time that I'd really been told that. And it is also at a time in my life that I don't know if I actually believe that. You know, John saw something in me that I couldn't see for myself. Right? So he instilled this belief and then enabled me to go out and make decisions, make mistakes, right? But it was never with the intent of, hey, this is what you're doing wrong or this is what you need to change. But it was with the belief in, you need to trust yourself because I trust you. And then encourage the heart. So this is my wife, Elizabeth. If you're around tomorrow morning, she will be visiting with our 2 young children, so you might get the chance to meet her. She is my biggest fan. There have been a lot of big moments in my life in the 10 years that we've known each other. So when I left Lamb Nakai, I took this sales job, right? Because I wanted to make more money, nonprofit, not the place. If you want to make the most money that you can, nonprofit probably not the place for you, FYI, if you didn't know that. So I took the sales job, and I was miserable. And it wasn't even that I hated it, I just was numb. I just didn't know why I was here, what I was doing. So a year in, she comes to me, she says, you need to quit your job. And I'm like, why? What are you talking about? We just bought a house, we got, this is not a smart decision. And she's like, you're miserable. You need to make some changes in your life for us. And so every time in my life that I've had doubts, and I had a lot of doubts about that, this is not going to work out, this is going to end poorly, we're going to end in financial ruin, this is going to hurt our future. She's always been there, right? To encourage, to support, to tell me it's going to work out. All of my insecurities, she helps. Every time. 2 years ago, I went back and got my MBA. I started that, so I ended last November. We had a kid, our daughter was I think 1 at the time, and then we had just found out that my wife was pregnant with our son. And I wanted to quit. Right, we got a lot going on. There's a lot going on in my life. There's a lot of stress, work. I don't have time for this. I can't do this. And she refused to let me. She instilled this belief that we will make it. We will make it as a family. We will make sure as a group that we just make it work. There will be nights and days that I have to be by myself with the kids, and that's going to be okay. And there's going to be nights and days that you have to stay up late, and you're going to be sleep deprived, and that's going to be okay. But at the end of the day, we are going to make it. You need to do this. This will change your life. So I did. If you ask people that work the Office of Administration, I am not good at positive affirmations. I'm not good at telling people when they do a good job because I just expect it. I promise I'm not a jerk. Elizabeth is the opposite. She's always encouraging. There is nothing too small to celebrate. Every challenge that I've been able to get through has been because she has always been supporting me. So I've shared a little bit about me. I want you to think about you. So think about the role models that you identified. This is page 14. How did they exemplify the 5 practices? How do you know? What did they do? What did they say? How did they act? So let's take 2 or 3 minutes. We'll reflect and write down some notes in your workbook, and then we'll come back. Okay, so let's share amongst the table kind of what you jotted down. We'll take a couple minutes to do that, and then we'll keep on moving. Okay. So I don't mean to rush us, but I am slightly behind schedule. So we are going to make some of this up real quick. I don't want you to be late to your next session. So let's talk about applying the 5 practices to you. How would you evaluate yourself in the 5 practices on a scale of 1 to 10? What are your strengths? So what are those practices that you're better at? And then what are some things that you could do in the near term to maybe improve on the practices that you scored the lowest on? So let's take 5 minutes and write down some notes. Let's make that 4 minutes. All right, let's wrap up here. So just some closing thoughts for the group. Want everyone to understand. These are all best practices, so one is not better than the other. Naturally, you will be better at some than others. But as an effective leader, you need to be able to use all 5. And it really depends upon the situation you're in, who you're with, that may dictate which of these practices you use more than the other. So just keep that in mind, kind of as situations come up back at home or back with the chapter, that using these 5 different practices. All right, so if you turn to page 44, you will be able to write your leadership commitment. So you'll see a box there on the left, 5 practices of exemplary leadership I commit to. Just want you to jot down one commitment that you're going to make as a result of kind of what we discussed today. Page 44 in the workbook.